Yes, we're live, baby. Oh, yeah. Hey. Welcome, everybody. It is the FAFSA pregame. So today we are going to be talking about the FAFSA. The goal of tonight is to get you to understand the foundational, just the basics we're going to talk about today. We're not going to go deep into it because next week we are going to start creating our to-do list, things that we need to do to get prepared for when the application actually opens. So today is just foundational knowledge. There's been a lot that changed over the summer with a big, ugly bill, right? That's where we started. So the big, ugly bill completely obliterated a lot of things. The Pell Grant is still intact. So we're going to talk about that. But there's some other things, some other shifts that will affect your ability to pay for college in the foreseeable future. And we need to talk about it. So that's what I am here for. So I am going to, start with who I am. So if you've never met me before, hi, my name is Amber Peters, aka Ms. P, and I help families to plan smart, pay less, and succeed in high school and beyond. That is my goal in life, is to make sure that you have a great experience, you have an affordable experience, you're able to do the things that you want because you want to do them, right? So for me, one of the things that I share openly is that I am a first generation college graduate. Yes, right? I graduated from college and it was a feat, right? It took time, blood, sweat, tears, money, right? To get to this point where I can now share my experience with families who are going through the same thing I went through in 2000 something, right? I went to school in 2003 and somehow the process is still the same in 2025, right? And so like my only goal in this life on this planet is to make sure that families out there have it easier than me and my mom had it, just to make sure that people can do the things that they want to do. With so much shifting around us, we really have to be laser focused on creating the pathway, the easiest pathway to the lives that we want. And so my only goal here is to make sure that you are able to do that. So without further ado, let's jump into the FAFSA. I'm not waiting. Whatever you miss, you can get it on the playback. But I want to honor people's time, right? I want to honor my time because I sure am hungry and I would love some dinner. Let's be honest, okay? All right, so what is the FAFSA? The FAFSA is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, emphasis on the word free. Okay, that first F means free. So if you're ever on a website and they're asking you for money, they're asking you for a credit card to help you do anything, know that that is a scam because the application is completely free of charge. They're not charging you. Okay. The other thing is that it is like a calculator, I would consider it to be. It is like an eligibility calculator. The FAFSA themselves, the federal government, literally does nothing but crunches some numbers and they send it out to the colleges of your choice, right? And so on the FAFSA, they're going to ask you, what schools do you want this information sent to, right? And so your job as a student is to make sure you have a college list, right? You can put up to 20 schools at one time on the FAFSA, right? And so what you're telling FAFSA is that you want all these 20 schools or 10 or 15 or how many ever you plan on applying for. You're telling them that you want this information translated to those schools, right? The schools then create a package for you based on the information that came from out of that form, right? So they're looking at your eligibility and they're determining how much of that money, that federal grants, federal loans that you're going to receive, right? And so when people get mad at FAFSA, I'm like, that's the wrong people to be angry at because they don't dole out the money. We should still be a little peeved with them just because of the formula, but they're not the one handing out the money, right? So something to note there. Okay, so the importance of the FAFSA, right? The FAFSA is the gateway to everything. And so while I understand, right, because I work with a lot of middle income families that be annoyed, like I did the FAFSA, I expected to get something and they don't see anything. And they're like, but I did the FAFSA, but I did this, but I did that. That's great, right? What you need to get into your head is that in their minds, if you make a decent income, they're assuming you got it. They're assuming you saved. They're assuming you have other sources of income that you're going to use to be able to impact said bill, right? And so they're not expecting you to use their money to be able to pay for college. However, in order for you to get from point A to point B, you have to have this thing filled out, right? Because it acts as a gateway to the other forms of aid, right? At the school level, they have funds that they might be able to give you. If they don't have an additional form like the CSS profile, which most selective schools have this extra form. If it's not a selective school, they don't have this extra form to judge your finances on and to decide if they can give you any money, right? And so the FAFSA becomes the gold standard. And if you did not fill out the FAFSA and they have money on their end that they could give you and you didn't follow it, well, they never gave me nothing in the past and blah, 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 then you block yourself from being able to get any funds, right? So it is the gateway to everything: grants, loans, scholarships. In order to get it, you need to file the FAFSA. Okay. So the rule of thumb here is you can make how much ever money, right? You can make 6 figures. You can make 7 figures. Fill out the doggone FAFSA. Unless you're going to come out of pocket for the whole thing, you don't expect to take a loan or anything like that, fill out the FAFSA. Okay. So one thing to note is that the FAFSA now is opening on October 1st. Yay! I'm super excited about this because in the last 2 years, FAFSA has gone through some changes, right? And so some updates, some tweaks, whatever you want to call it. They went through a lot of changes. And so because of this, it threw off the calendar as we know it, right? And so for us counselors, we're fully expecting, right, October is going to open. And they was like, yeah, we're not ready yet. So come back to us in December, right? And then so we're like, all right, December. They're like, all right, December 31st, literally New Year's Eve, when people are sitting there probably, bringing in the new year with their family. Nobody's thinking about FAFSA at that point, but that's when they decided to release it the first time. And then the next time they're like, oh, okay, we're going to say December 1st this time. And they had like a pilot program where people can get their applications in and test the system to see if the system is working for everybody else, right? So this year, they promised to be ready for October 1st. I'm going to take them at their word. October 1st is when it opens this year. Okay. So let's talk about the different types of things you get as a result of applying through the FAFSA form, right? So there are 4 different pots that you can get access to. So we have a Pell Grant, right? And the Pell Grant is what they say is the free money, right? Free ain't free, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to keep your grades up in order to keep your money flowing. The minute your grades drop below a certain thing, that money can be stripped away from you, okay? But the Pell Grant is like the free money that they advertise, right? It doesn't require repayment, but you are going to be holding to something, right? They want to see good grades, right? Like they want to make sure you have the right amount of credits in order to keep the money flowing. We also have FSEOG, which is another grant that is a need-based grant, okay? And so like I said before, need is determined by a formula, right? So when you're doing the FAFSA, they're determining the formula, right? And so if on that formula they see that you have a high demonstrated need, what they're going to do is that they can add this additional funding. Now, this additional funding, you will not see anything on your dashboard. So after you complete the FAFSA, you're not going to see anything for FSEOG. That goes through the schools. So the schools are allocated a set amount of money, right? It's in the billions, right? And so they have this money and then they're like, oh, okay. So Johnny got a full Pell Grant. But when we're looking at the schools on his list, even with the Pell Grant, he still won't be able to have enough. We can give him some extra money. Now, the FSEOG grant is not a lot, right? It's between $100,000 and $4,000, but it's additional to the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant, by the way, is $7,395. That is what they approved for the next school year, right? So 2026-27, that is the application that is coming out on October 1st. If you apply on October 1st, then that application is for next year, fall 2026, okay? So let's talk about the SAI formula for a little bit, because I think a lot of people get confused with this, right? It's not happenstance. There is a formula, right? And the formula is taking into account they say resources, but you're putting in your income, you're talking about your assets and things like that. You come up with a formula, crunch the numbers, and then you get this thing called an SAI, right? So the SAI ranges from negative 1,500, right? If you're closer to a negative, you're going to get more money, right? And then on the positive side, it's 999.99, right? And so this number doesn't mean that you are responsible for contributing $900,000, right? It's part of the formula, right? That number means something to the people in the financial aid department, and then they're going to decide how much of that money you're going to receive, okay? So the more negative you are, the more aid you're going to receive. The more positive you are, right? So like if you're over zero, the less money you're going to receive. Cool? All right, so your SAI, what the SAI is not a dollar amount that you will receive. It's not what you're expected to provide out of pocket, and it's not your financial aid offer, right? You will see your financial aid offer after you've been accepted and they package you, right? And so that's the process. I apply for school, I get accepted to said school. They say, hey, you filed your FAFSA. Great. Let's see how much money, right, we can give you from the federal government. Let's see, if you need any loans. If we have any scholarships available, we'll make that happen as well, right? If you qualify. Let's talk about that, right? So one of the things that I talk about heavily is being in position. So a lot of people complain about the money, but then they didn't do the things that they needed to do to be in position for that money, right? Scholarships are not given to just anybody. Not these type of scholarships where we're talking about institutional scholarships that come from the college. They're not just given to anyone, right? At this point, when you are getting that type of scholarship, it means that you had stellar grades. It means that, right, like there's certain things that they're looking for. Your stellar grades, your SAT scores, those type of things. They're looking for those things before they'll release any institutional money to you. And if they do the institutional money for you, you're good as golden. Okay, you're doing well, honey. Okay. So who is? Oh, the other part. Your income is based on 2024. So they do this prior year stuff. Don't ask me why. It never made sense to me. So this is based on 2024. So if you were doing real good in 2024, you might not get a whole lot of aid. If you was doing not so great in 2024, like maybe it balanced out now, but like then it was a little janky, you'll be fine going forward. Okay, so just know that they're behind a year. And so 2024 is what they're looking at. Here's the thing though, and here's the secret. 2024, things wasn't looking so good, right? Or things were looking great. You get to do an appeal, right? So, but this is after everything had to be sent in and everything like that. They can review and be like, hey, where are you working now? What does your income look like? And then they can recalculate you and give you a different package, right? So you can still negotiate a good package, right? But it's all about knowing that you can do that, because most people don't know and they stick with the package that sucks. And then, they're upset that they didn't get enough money and they don't have enough money to pay. So that's that. So who's eligible to apply? So the FAFSA is for citizens and eligible non-citizens. Okay. FAFSA has a very clear directive on their website that will explain to you who the non-citizens are. I'm not going to go into super detail, but if you are a permanent resident, refugee, or asylum granted, you can apply for FAFSA, right? If those things are not your experience, if you are undocumented, you cannot apply for FAFSA. Okay. So that's something to know as well. What is staying the same this year? So we got to talk about war, right? Congress and them, because this is how I feel right now. Ready to square up with somebody. Okay. So what is the same right now? So what's the same is that the max award for Pell, they decided to keep that the same. So it will still be $7,395. And it's supposed to remain for 2026. And we don't know what it looks like. It changes year to year, but next year, that's what they promised. Okay. FSEOG is still going to be the same, the $100 to $4,000. That is additional. You have to have gotten a Pell Grant first before you can get that money. Okay. So who usually gets full Pell? So a person who would usually get full Pell, their family is probably making under $60,000. For people with higher income, right, it's a sliding scale, right? How far you are away from the $60,000 is going to determine how much Pell Grant, if you receive any Pell Grant at all. Okay. So what changed though? Okay. So the form, I have been playing with the form for the last week. I'm so excited. I cannot wait because it is going to be significantly easier. So if you've ever did a FAFSA application, the invite process has been a little bit janky. You got to know your mom's social security number, birthday, all these different pieces of information. This year, all you have to know is their email. That's it. And it's not in the middle of the application anymore. It's at the end. So that is a great change, a welcome change, right? The other thing is there are some changes. You're not going to be able to identify your gender as whatever you identify as. It's only male and female. But other than that, there aren't any like huge tweaks to the application except for that invite process. And also, when you're getting your FSA ID, you don't have to wait days anymore, which is like, if y'all, the federal government, IRS, Social Security, they're all the same thing. Why y'all having issues pulling out information? Why it's taking days to do anything, right? But now it is going to be a faster process. So like if you are starting your FAFSA for the first time and you need an FSA ID, it will be quick and painless. You'll be able to do your FSA ID and then jump into your side of the application. Super easy peasy pumpkin squeezy. I'm super excited about that. As for policy, so everybody heard of they called it the big beautiful bill, but ain't nothing beautiful about it. Okay. A lot of us are going to be hurting. I hope you guys know that. I hope you guys are buckling down because a lot of things are going to be changing for the American people, including how we go to college and how we afford college. So one of the ways that people afford college is through student loans. Now, granted, I don't totally 100% agree with student loans because they can be predatory in the repayment process, right? And so at times you'll be on the hamster wheel. You think you are doing your damnedest, paying, and then you realize that your principal has not been touched, right? And so I have real qualms about that, but what I do know is that families rely on student loans to be able to afford college. And so they've been messing with it because, right, to them, they don't want a lot of us to be educated, right? And so the way that you mess with how people are educated is by making them unable to pay for it, right? It is what it is, right? And so right now, Grad Plus loans are going to be eliminated starting July 2026. I am not the best person to ask about it because my target audience is high school students and early college, right? So I don't typically deal with folks who are Going back to school for grad school and things like that, if you're in the undergraduate level, that's kind of where my realm of responsibilities are. But just know, if you're planning to go to grad school and you expected to get a grad plus loan, that might not exist for you in 2026. Okay. There's also some new borrowing caps. So I'm reading my notes, by the way. There are new borrowing caps for students and parents. Okay. So if you are planning to go to grad school, right, they might be like, oh, you can only borrow this much over the lifetime of your career, right? And so who will be most affected by this? Lawyers, doctors, right? People who have a long trajectory in school, they're going to be affected by this quite a bit, okay? For parents, they have also decided to cap it. So my concern is for people with multiple children, right? Or children who are going to school around the same time as each other, right? It's going to make it very challenging to put everybody to school. Like, I remember I had a family that I worked with. Both daughters were going to college at the same time, right? Both going to schools that cost a pretty penny, right? At the same time. And so you have to think about how you're going to make that work. Okay. So just something to note there, right? Loan repayment rules are changing too, right? So now you get the loan. Repayment is going to be more difficult, right? They're trying to get rid of some of the income driven stuff, and that's problematic, right? Because if we're not going based on someone's income, right, like that, the cost to repay that loan could be exorbitant. I'm going, I'm trying to live, I'm trying to pay my rent and all my bills and things like that. But then also I have to worry about this too. Something to note and something to think about. Okay. So here are my key takeaways for the night. You should start planning early, right? And so if you're live with me right now and you are a parent of a student who is not a senior, maybe they're in the 10th grade, 11th grade, it is time for you to really start thinking about how you're going to finance this thing over time. Okay. Because when we take away student loans, now granted, there aren't a ton of people who take advantage of the plus loans anyway for the parents, because the plus loans have a lot of stipulations, right? One of them being that you have to be credit worthy, right? And so if your credit is shot, the odds of you getting a parent plus loan is kind of null and void, right? Which pushes people to the private sector, right? And private sector loans are even more predatory at times, right? And so it is important to have a plan of how you're going to finance your education. There are plenty of ways that you can finance your education. I'll tell you guys about a tool that I have coming out in the next few weeks. It's called the College Money Toolkit, and it's going to explain all the different ways you can pay for college and also save on your costs as well. That's coming soon. I'll talk about that on the next live. Okay. Parents, because of the borrowing caps, right? You really need to figure out savings and also helping your child to apply for scholarships. Students, y'all need to be applying to scholarships like it's your full-time job, period, point blank. Okay. You go to my website, www.mizzp.nyc, mizzp.nyc. I have a scholarship list. It's a small list, but I update it fairly regularly. So right now, these are scholarships that are in play right now. There's a few of them that are ending this week, actually Monday. So between the 15th and 30th, there are a couple of scholarships on there right now that you can apply for. So get the applying. Okay. The other thing is borrowing is going to be more limited. So you need to think about diversifying your college list. Okay. So here's the thing. I realized that sometimes, especially when you've been thinking about going to college for a while, maybe you went to a college tour that changed everything for you. Maybe you heard about a friend or family member's experience at a particular college and you see the excitement in their faces and, they just seem so, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. I met friends and I did this and you want that same experience for yourself. I need you to really think about something else besides that experience, because that's great. and that should be at the forefront. But I want you to also think about cost, right? Things are getting significantly more expensive. After this year, college costs are going to skyrocket. And the reason behind that is because, right, there's a lot of things shifting with who they can actually bring into their colleges. So remember, colleges are businesses. They make money, right? You being there, you pay a cost to be there. They are able to do things, pay their staff, keep their lights on, and things like that, right? There has been a shift for international students specifically. International students pay more money to go to colleges than we do most of the time, right? Especially if you are an in-state student, right? You're not paying as much as someone who is coming from a different country, right? And so if they're losing that income, what do you think happens to the price for the consumer? Right? It's got to go up. So we want to be prepared for when these costs go up, right? We need to be prepared to make sure that we can make it all the years that we want to be in school. Because I know most people don't go into college saying that they only want to go to school for a year, right? Most people want to go to school for 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Sometimes 6 years, right? And so we want to make sure that we are able to make it all of those years. So we really have to consider moving around our college list, have our schools that are like our dream schools, see what their packages is like, right? And tell everybody, every kid that I work with, every family I work with, let them show you the money. Okay? Let them show you the money. That is important. If they are able to show you a financial aid package that makes sense for you and your family, you're not going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? You're not going to get kicked out in the middle of the semester because you couldn't pay your bill. Then you definitely want to make sure that you go there, right? Attend, go, do your thing, right? But if that school that you apply for, that you were so excited about, can cause you financial hardship, you might need to reconsider. And so when we're diversifying our college list, we are making sure that we have schools on there that, right, like our lofty goal school, they call it a reach school, right? Target safety, we need to have safety schools, things that are in our price range that we can afford. For some people, that's community college. For some people, it's the local state college, right? You want to make sure you have a great mix of the ones that are affordable, that you wouldn't mind going to. It's not your favorite place that you want to be, but you want to make sure that they're on your list because things happen, okay? I've been in this work for the last, I don't know, 10, 11 years in college access, but in education as a whole for 17. And I've seen a lot of things when it comes to students and when it comes to getting in school and staying in school. A lot of times what happens is we will support the student, right? They're like, final answer, I don't want to hear nothing else. June comes, right? And they start seeing the portal showing a bill and a balance. It shifts the conversation dramatically, right? And so what I want you guys to not do is to wait until June, because when you get close to June, most schools start in August. You don't leave yourself enough wiggle room to figure out the finances, right? And so if you're thinking about the finances as you're creating your college list, it will help you to minimize any feelings of disappointment later. Okay, so we want to make sure that our list is diversified enough that we have some schools that are like our dream schools. We really want to go there, but then we also have affordable schools that we wouldn't mind going there. It's not our favorite thing, might not be the place we want to be, but right, in a pinch, if I have to pivot and change my mind, I can, I have a reasonable time to make that happen. Okay, so very important to do that. Okay, so that is what I have for you guys tonight. If you have any questions, this is a great time for you to drop it. I'm live in 2 places, by the way. So, hey, Instagram, hey, YouTube. But I can see the questions as they come through if you guys have them. If you guys have them, this would be a great time. Okay, because like I said, sister hungry, I want to eat. But like I said before, so let's recap. Let's recap what I said. Okay, FAFSA coming out October 1st. Big beautiful bill messed up everything. So if you were like planning on leaning on loans, even after all the conversations we done had, if you're planning on leaning on loans, understand that the loan landscape has changed, and so students and parents need to plan for other options, right? Whether that is applying for lots of scholarships, whether that is you preparing yourself so that you are in the position to receive said scholarships. You need to do that work, right? You need to be involved. You need to be doing service activities. Let me tell you again, to get some of these scholarships, many of them have a service requirement. If you have not given back to your community in any way, shape, or form, you will not receive a dollar or a dime. Okay, so please, if you have the ability to give back in your community, feel free. I'm actually, like, if you are in the New York area, I am trying to connect with some organizations. Shout out to Grassroots Grocery. I had a really good conversation with them yesterday, trying to coordinate some ways that students can get some service hours, right? Because those service hours are going to be important. It is great to give back. It is in style. It is in fashion. You should be giving back to your community. Don't just leave your community high and dry and take all your talents with you. Feed the community with your talent, right? So something to know, okay? FAFSA is the gateway to all forms of aid. If you don't complete a FAFSA, don't expect to get anything, okay? Unless you got it like that, then by all means, do your thing, homie. You rich, you got it. Do what you got to do, right? So SAI, right? The more negative, the more money you're going to get. The more positive, the least amount of money you're going to get. The income is going to be based on 2024's taxes. The award for Pell is $7,395, right? The application is going to be significantly more easy this year. Significantly more easy. It always amazes me when people sit down with me. They're going through the FAFSA with me, and they look at me like I did something wrong. And I'm like, why? Why would you say that? Like, I'm sitting here with you. I know what I'm doing. But because the application process is so fast, they're like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Once you get into the application, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The FAFSA being early, I mean, it's early, yes, in the grand scheme of things, because, you know, school just opened. But this is where it's always been, in October, right? And so here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to you don't have to have everything ready by October 1st, right? Like, if your college list is not finished, it's not complete, you can still apply for FAFSA, right? All your schools don't have to be accounted for, okay? You might decide you don't want to go to none of the schools that you put down. You can do corrections, okay? So, like, you're not locked into anything. The FAFSA, you can change it. You can come back and do a correction and take out a school, add a school. You are at liberty to do that. You're not stuck, okay? The only reason why people want you to do it early, and why I implore you to get it done within 45 days of it opening. So if it's October 1st, November 15th is my internal deadline for FAFSA, right? The reason why I implore families to do that is because a lot of this money is first come, first serve. We are at a time, and I hope y'all paying attention to what's going on, right? They are actively dismantling systems that have been here for decades, right? And so the amount of money they allocate to these programs are going to get significantly less. It is what it is, right? And so with that thinking, I need to be first in line. I need mine. Give me mine off the top, right? And so you want to make sure you get your application done early. The other part is, with the first come, first serve funds, especially when it comes to institutional scholarships, you really want to make sure that you have your applications in, especially if you're applying you're doing any early action, early decision deadlines, you are required to get your FAFSA in as early as possible, because you're getting a package and you're getting an acceptance, right? Like, they're giving you the whole shebang, shaboom, right? And so if you don't have all those things, they can't really make a great, help you to make a great decision, because you won't be able to have that package all at once. Okay. For clarity, early action there's nothing binding that decision, right? And so if you decide to do early action, you're going to get a decision around Christmas time or the first couple of weeks of January. You will know if you got into said school. You can apply to a bunch of them. Early action. For New York specifically, we have a free application period that happens in October, right? And so in the grand scheme of things, a lot of this stuff is not early, right? Like, if you want to get those deadlines, then you're going to be behind if you didn't start any of the work, right? And I know it feels like rushed and things like that, but like, this is how it goes, right? This is why I recommend starting as early as possible, right? This summer was a great time to work on materials, because these things happen all the time, right? And then you don't want to miss out on an opportunity, right? Like, so for us here in New York, we get there are a bunch of schools within the CUNY system. You can apply for 6 for one price. Now, if you get the free application period, you pay nothing and you can still apply for all 6 schools, right? And so, like, that gives you more bang for your buck, because each school that you apply for can be free. Some schools, which aren't many, that like they don't have an application fee at all, but many schools are from $25 to $85, I think was the highest application fee I saw. If you're applying to 10, 15 schools, you can do the math on that, right? If you are not qualified to get a fee waiver, and fee waiver is based on, there is a federal guideline for that, and it's based on the USDA rules of like poverty or something like that. There's a whole chart. You have to have certain amount of people in the household, and then you can't make more than the dollar amount that they have in order to get a fee waiver, right? Unless you're at a school that some ways people get around it. Some schools do like an SAT school day, because some of the people at the school receive free lunch. And so sometimes you'll be able to use College Board to be able to get fee waivers, because you got a fee waiver to be able to take the test, right? And so there's different kind of ways around it, but for the most part, many people have to come out of pocket for each application that they have, right? And so just something to note there as well. Okay. So I'm gonna leave you with this. Plan your finances. Outside of the FAFSA is just one part of the process. Even if, right, you would have gotten the max financial aid, right? You got the max Pell Grant. Okay. Let's say you did. The max Pell Grant is $7,395. State schools are between $20,000 and $30,000. Okay, so $7,000 was only going to be a drop in the bucket in the first place, right? So it is important that for you guys that you have another plan, right? I had one family, the mom she had all types of extra side jobs. She worked a full-time job, and she did several different things, dog sitting, all kinds of stuff, to make sure that she had enough money put to the side for any costs that were outside of what she was going to receive or what her son was going to receive in financial aid. She made it work, right? There are some people who don't have a plan like that at all, right? And so they get disappointed when they do get their results back from the FAFSA, like, but I thought I was like, you think because of maybe how you view your finances, in your eyes, you're broke. But to the federal government, that's only seeing income on paper. They're not considering who you have to feed in your household. They're not, thinking about the bills that you have to pay. None of that is in the formula. Okay. So I just want you to understand that none of that is in the formula. So how you feel about your finances and how the government sees your finances is two different things, right? So regardless of what, if you're only going to get $7,395 towards your education and you know that you're applying to schools that will require you to provide significantly more income to be able to impact that, then you have to have a plan. It is so important to make sure that you are looking at the landscape. For you parents out there, it's important to plan side by side with your child. I want you to look at the college websites. Very important. Look at the college websites. Go to that. You're going to go to the school's website. You're going to go into the admissions tab, and then you're going to go to the financial aid tab. And you are going to look at the cost associated with going to school there, right? And then I want you in your head to calculate the cost of that college. And if, right, because remember, the max income that you can make to get a decent amount of Pell is $60,000. If you know you make significantly more than that, you know that you're going to have to add some cash somehow. And you need to have a plan of action for that, whether that is savings, whether that is applying for scholarships out of the wazoo. You want to also, if you're going to apply for scholarships and that is going to be your way, you need to start looking locally, right? Talk to your elected officials, talk to the nonprofits in the area, look to see if there are any foundations. Foundations give a lot of money. They like throwing money at stuff. Okay, it's a great tax write-off for them. Okay, so you want to look for foundations in your area. You want to look to see if the mom and pop shops. I remember one day I was just walking through Harlem, and there is a store. It's called restaurant called Mana's, right? Buffet style restaurant. They had a scholarship for students in the spring and the fall. I think spring and the fall last year, right? And so you need to be hitting the ground running, boots to the ground, right? You have to do the work in order to find the stuff that you need, and know that you're going to you might get a few dollars from the government, but it's not always enough all the time for how much these schools cost, right? Unless you are going to, and that's the other thing. Let's preface this by saying when they expected you guys to go to college, they weren't expecting that you were going to pick the $60,000 a year school, right? Especially when there's a college in your neighborhood that's probably like $4,000 a year, $5,000 a year. You skip that to go to the school that's $60,000 and expected that $7,395 to do something, if you got it at all. Right. And so like we have to be real about these things, because I feel like a lot of times we're living in la la land. We're living in a time, or our brains are living in a time where things was good, right? Where costs were low, where we can afford to do those type of things. Now things are going up, $7,395. And then the schools that are closest to us are also going up, right? For me, New York was the safety, right? Like, you go into the SUNY schools, right? You going upstate or whatever. It was like maybe like 23, 24. Last year, I'm looking at packages, $35,000. What? When did this happen, right? Almost a $10,000 jump in just a year. So you can imagine, right, when all those rules go into effect, because a lot of the rule changes, especially when it comes to the student loans and things, those don't go into effect until 2026. So if you're not thinking about your plan now, and you can't wait for 2026 and the rules to change and then be like, well, they didn't give me anything and forget FAFSA, da da da. I get it all the time, right? You have to be planning in advance. You must be planning in advance. Okay. So I want to share with you guys that are live. If you are not in my community, I have a freemium group. Freemium means it is free to join. You're going to get information. You're going to get access to some of my resources. I have tons of websites that you can use to plan your way to the top, right? And you have access to all of those inside of the community. To join that community, if you're on Instagram, you can drop the word resources. If not, you can go to the link in my bio. You'll find all of my links there. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, if you're not in my community and you want to be, wait until the end of this presentation and I will have all the details inside of the description box. If you're in the community and you're live with me right now, thank you so much for being a part of the community. I am going to ramp up things as we go along because we're just scratching the surface. We're just getting started with the college prep, right? We're just getting there, right? And so I want to make sure that you guys have an easy way to the top, okay? So if there are no questions, you're so welcome, Haitians. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. We got a returner in the building. I love that for me. So yeah, if that is all I have for you. I will keep this replay up for a little bit. The other YouTube version will be live inside of the On Track with Ms. P community. So you'll be able to access it there too. But thank you guys for watching. My name is Amber Peters, aka Ms. P, your college planning sidekick, and thank you for getting on track with me. Get on track. Get on track.